now, Beatles producer George Martin describes a strange time in 1967 when George Harrison was addicted to eating beans.
Oh, yes, well, there was this time, sort of around pepper. We were making pepper, and parts of it were a bit more difficult to make than the others because George, I don't know how to say this delicately. Is this going to be for normal television, or can I just
say whatever you want, Mr. Martin, just whatever you want?
Well, George had been farting. George had been laying eggs, all over the studio. And of course, we figured out pretty quickly who was doing it. So George had taken to eating nothing but beans because he'd become a vegetarian and he couldn't get full on lettuce and tomatoes and onions and all this. So beans are high in fiber and they fill you up. Well, not only do they fill you up, but the old children's song. I don't know if they've got it in the States, but over here we say, beans, beans, the musical fruit, the more you eat, the more you toot. Which is funny and everybody laughs, but the smell. When we were making For the Benefit of Mr. Kite, we had to ask George to leave the room, but that wasn't enough. We had to get him to go up on the roof so we wouldn't smell him farting.
George Harrison, 1967. Oh yes, everybody's giving me all this guff because I'm eating beans, as if no one's ever farted before, I don't know how to say that for public release, but who cares? This is never going to be heard by anyone, but sure, I was eating a lot of beans. I didn't want to eat meat anymore. I wanted to become a vegetarian, and so I was eating a lot of beans. And I was farting a lot, and I don't need to tell you that farts don't smell good. They don't smell like potpourri or carnations or daisies or, room fresheners, those things in the cans that you spray that are supposed to make the room smell good and none of that. Or incense, farts smell like basically a slaughterhouse. Which actually is ironic because I was trying to avoid any contact with a slaughterhouse. But I was eating the beans and, John Lennon, 1980. Well, you're gonna bring this up. Well, I'll talk about anything, I don't mind talking about it. But, okay, I was the first one to approach George, about his farting. To be blunt, about his farting. Everybody farts. I think they've even got children's books, how everybody farts. Everybody does it. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and you laugh. But once every, minute and a half, 2 minutes, he would just unload on the studio. And they were these dense farts that would just fill the room with just the most acrid, pungent, sort of methane. It just absolutely, it was an eye irritant, I had to keep putting eye drops in my eyes, and frankly I resented knowing that I was standing in the middle of this horrible stench and all my clothes were getting, infused with George's farts, and I had to take my clothes to a special cleaning place. I still have a jacket that Yoko won't let me wear. Which it's the brown leather one. Right. It smells like George's farts. I know. She won't let me wear it. We keep it in the basement. It's downstairs. She won't let me wear it. And I don't blame her. I don't want to wear it. I'm trying to let it air out. I've kept it outside under the awning. And we've done all sorts of cleaning measures to clean it. It won't air out of George's fart smell from 1967. What's that, 12, 13 years ago? That's a long time for a fart to stick around, Christ! Paul McCartney, 1995. Oh, well, okay, so, some topics are a bit more delicate than others. I guess I can tell you about this, you know, I guess if Ringo and John and George have already talked about it, but, I mean, I was talking about, I don't know, 15 years ago about this, and I mean, it's not funny. It's not something to be joked about. Yeah, people who find scatological humor funny are very sick in the head. People, you know, poopy, caca, ha ha ha, let's laugh at that. You know, that's not funny. That's not sophisticated humor. To make scatological jokes and, you know, talk about farting and pooping and all this. It shows that you're not a very witty person and that you're not good at making people laugh in other ways, so you basically take it down to the level of a 2-year-old and say, I pooped my pants, ha 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 ha. You know, so I'm not telling you this because it's funny, because I don't think poopy caca jokes are funny. Look at that. Look, see that guy over there? He's talking like he just farted. No, but seriously, yeah, George was lighting the place on fire. I mean, if you had lit a match, which we did, I think we blew up. I think we're all dead because of George and his beans. You know, I didn't know they made that many different kinds of beans, you know. I knew about fava beans and black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, lima beans, all sorts of beans I was aware of. George was going out of his way to have all sorts of dried beans shipped in from the Orient, you know, India and all. George, you know, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to produce the most gigantic fart known to mankind? What are you trying to do? Ringo Starr. 1989.
Oh, you know, see, this is the thing about George, is when you piss off George, you know, he'll get back at you. You know, if you don't approach him the right way about a problem, well, then you'll be sorry, because he'll do it more, and he'll do it right in your face, you know. I was, you know, coming into the studio one day, we were working on Sgt. Pepper, and, John and Paul were off in the booth sort of avoiding George because of his stench. I was the only one who could tolerate it, you know, because I've got sinus things. Sometimes I can't smell, you know. But I still knew what was going on. And George had had enough of the teasing and carousing about his farting. So I don't know why I got the brunt of this, but he says, Ringo. I said, yeah. He says, lean down here and listen to the way this bottom E string on my guitar sounds when I tune it this strange way. I said, uh-huh. So I get down there and put my ear. He said, no, put your ear real close to the guitar. So I put my ear, and he just... Right, you know, I can't make fart noises with my mouth, but it was just a very bassy, you know, one of those sort of wet, moist... ass-ripping farts, you know, just sort of rips your ass. Well, you know, he just farted, essentially, right next to my nose, and I didn't have time to escape, because, you know, I looked up at him like, I wasn't thinking straight. I looked up at him, and I was still down there. I was on my knees, you know. I look up at him like George, what did you just do? But as I'm looking up at him with my sarcastic look on my face, of course, the smell now has just blasts me in the face. And sinus problems are no. If you're that close to one of George's farts, you're in trouble, mate. I mean, you need to get outside and get some oxygen quickly, because you're going to have your brain start to atrophy, because it's going to die.
George Martin, 1991.
Oh, yeah, so, well, you know, I had told George that this was not suitable. And, he got real serious. At least I thought he was for a moment. He says, okay. George, he says, you know what I'm going to do about it? I said, no, George, what are you going to do about it? And this sly look comes over his face, and he just goes... I said, okay, so that's funny to you. He said, no, it's not funny. I said, why are you your shoulders, you know. His shoulders were going up and down. He's laughing. I said, George, you just farted on purpose. You timed it with that question. You farted on purpose. His shoulders going, ha ha. I said, you think it's funny? He says, no. You could not get a straight answer out of him. Paul McCartney, 1978. Oh, well, I don't want to talk about that. You know, maybe someday, when more time has passed. But I'll put it to you this way. I heard that John has a jacket that to this day he can't wear because of that incident. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. George Harrison, 1998. Oh, you know, that was so long ago. And, I was a bit pissy in those days. You know, I would do things to get on people's nerves. You know, I admitted, and when I started farting so much in the studio, I mean, I could smell it. I knew it smelled. I wasn't, you know, olfactorily dead or nothing like that. Hey, Bean Man! Hey, my name's not Bean Man, it's George, asshole! People to this day drive by and call me Bean Man. Think they're funny. Well, anyway, I'm sorry. That just totally threw me off this thought I was going to say. Son of a bitch drives by, calls me Bean Man. See where karma takes him, you know. That's the thing. Perhaps karma, you know. For all those years I'd eaten meat, karma was coming back on me. And I was smelling, you know, what other people smelled. I don't know, but the boys gave me a lot of hell about it. And, you know, for many years when we get together, and if I would fart, they would sort of, you know, tense up and, is he going to start farting all over us again? You know, I remember one time, Ringo, I was, this is a couple of years ago, we had tea. You know, nothing but tea and sandwiches, you know, nothing big, just a nice little get-together, just to say hi, you know. And I let one, you know, sort of, just, you know, real quick. Ringo, you know, snaps to attention like a sergeant in the British Army or something. What was that? What was that? And he looks at me, and I look back at him, and you know, we hadn't mentioned it for years, and we didn't say anything, but I knew what he was thinking. You know, these are my brothers. I know them. I know what they're thinking. And he thought, you know, that perhaps I was going to do what I had done to him this one time. And I'm ashamed to admit this, but I did. You know, I thought it was funny. I told him to listen to my guitar, get down on his knees, and I said, Ringo, listen what happens when I tune it like this. And I blasted him in the face with a fart. And as I look back on that, I think, you know, what would Maharaja Yashash Yogi think about that? You know, what would the Maharishi think about what I'd done? I gave him a fart in the face, every bit as destructive as Shiva. As if Shiva had farted in your face. Can you imagine? I hope I'm not blaspheming with saying that, but what sort of a fart could Shiva unleash? You know, after eating the souls of the damned, you know. I'll bet it wouldn't smell like roses. That's all I'm going to say. Well, so I blasted Ringo in the face with the most putrid, unrelenting, just babbling brook of a fart, because once your asshole opens up with a fart like that, you know, the gases keep coming out long after the sound is dissipated. And I surrounded him with this swirling vortex of stench. And Ringo, you know, he didn't find it amusing. And I was laughing, you know, and George Martin's just, you know, in the booth up there with he's got his hands, both of his hands on his face, like, you know, that gesture that people make when they don't know what to do with someone. They love them so much, but they're out of control. They put their hands on their face. And I kind of stopped laughing for a second when I saw George Martin like that. And then I started laughing even more, because I thought that makes it even funnier. And then, you know, and George, I heard him go into the booth trying to be quiet and whisper as I'm sitting there fiddling with my guitar. I think it was my Gretsch.
with whatever, it was one of those F-bodies or something. It doesn't matter, you know, the story is about the fart, not the guitar. So Ringo just goes off into the booth and he starts telling John and Paul and George Martin all about what I had done. And he's trying to be really quiet about it. And he's saying, you know, George just farted in my face on purpose. I don't, you know. And I just started laughing and farting.